All right, DeepEllumOnAir. We are at the DFW NORML Texas Regional NORML Conference, and I am joined right now by a very special guest, Keith Stroup. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be back in Texas. In 1971, the first year we were in existence, Texas was the very first state we came to work, because at that time you were locking more people up on marijuana charges than any other state in the country. I'm pleased to say it's still tough here, but it's not near as bad as it was back then.
Wow. So now you're one of the founders of NORML. What is it like seeing how much it's grown?
Well, I knew we were going to win this issue because the demographics were in our favor. Younger people favor our side. They're familiar with marijuana. They're not frightened by it. The older Americans who were anti-marijuana because of the reefer madness mentality, they were dying off and being replaced by younger people. So I knew eventually we were going to win. I wasn't sure I'd live long enough to see it, and I am absolutely thrilled to see it. I mean, the fact that this past November we fully legalized marijuana in Colorado and Washington, it feels incredibly rewarding and empowering.
I completely agree. During the Christmas vacation, I went to Colorado, and it felt like I was liberated on the other side of the wall. I was like, wow, this is what freedom is like.
Yeah, it's very empowering. It's interesting. I think people, until they've done it, they underestimate the difference it feels when you're not looking over his shoulder. You're not putting the towel underneath the door. You can smoke a joint in a responsible manner and no one cares. It's none of the government's business whether you smoke or why you smoke. And that's what legalization does. In the end, I will tell you honestly, I've been smoking for 48 years. I first started smoking when I was a freshman in Georgetown Law School in 1965. But the truth is, it's only incidentally about marijuana. It's really about personal freedom, and that's always been NORML's position. I'm not trying to turn on the world. I don't care if people smoke or not. All I care is stop treating responsible marijuana smokers as if they were criminals. And we now enjoy a majority support of the entire country, not just people who smoke. People who smoke only comprise about 13% of the population. But all the polls show right now we have support of between 52 and 56% of the public nationwide that said they want to end marijuana prohibition, legalize it, regulate it, and tax it. So it's interesting. They're not pro-marijuana necessarily, but they're anti-prohibition. That's all we need.
Wow, that's really exciting. A lot of people think, it'll never become legalized in Texas, and they think that Texas has that southern stigmata. But here at DeepEllumOnAir, we have a show called the Texas Legalization Report, and we tend to disagree. We think that Texas has a really good chance of becoming one of these states to legalize marijuana. What do you think?
Without question, Texas will legalize marijuana. My guess would be you won't be in the first eight or 10 states to do it, but you'll certainly be in the second group, I think. You'll do it long before the real deep south, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina. Those states will probably be the last. But the one thing about Texas, you people have always appreciated privacy. You've always appreciated individual rights. So I think it was only a social issue problem. That people identified marijuana smoking with opposition to the Vietnam War and things like that. And for a lot of older Americans, they got to where they didn't evaluate marijuana on its own right. They evaluated on whether they thought you were a troublemaker or whether you were an anti-war protester or whether you were not as religious as they're used to thinking or whatever. On its own merits, there are very few people who will tell you they think you ought to send a responsible marijuana smoker to jail. So we've largely won the hearts and minds of the American public. If I could just briefly, the year before NORML started, in 1969, Gallup poll for the first time ever, asked the American public how many people favor legalizing marijuana. They hadn't even thought to ask it until 69. It was 12%. 88% of the country were opposed to our position. Well, it took a long time, but in the end, we're winning not because we've become more clever or because we phrased the arguments better. It's because we have finally convinced the majority of Americans that prohibition is a failure. And so it's enormously empowering to see the change that's taking place. And if people have never done it, trust me, go to one of the states that have fully legalized marijuana and go to a private party and see what it's like to smoke perfectly legal. We hold legal seminars. I just got back from Aspen last week, and a lot of those lawyers who come to it are from states where they've never smoked marijuana legally in their life, and it really is a wonderful experience. It changes your life.
Wow, that's neat. Keith Stroup, thank you very much. I briefly mentioned TLR, the Texas Legalization Report. We're going to have you call in a couple of weeks on the next show. What else do you have going on?
Well, it's funny. I've been moving enough that I'm losing my track of time. I was at the Hash Bash in Ann Arbor not long ago. I was in Boston for an event up there not long ago. Then we were at the 420 Cannabis Cup in Denver. Then I was at the Aspen NORML Legal Seminar, and now I'm down here. So I'm hoping to have a couple of weekends at home, but it's not long before we have the Seattle Hemp Fest again and the Boston Freedom Rally again. So it's gotten to be where there are events every month or two all around the year. It's no longer just one or two things a year. And they're major political events anymore. I mean, the Seattle Hemp Fest attracts something like 90,000 people a day for each of 3 days. Almost everybody there is openly smoking, and they haven't had a single arrest in over 5 years. And that was when it used to still be technically a crime. Now it's not even a crime.
You mentioned you're at the Cannabis Cup. What was your favorite strand?
Well, I'll tell you, I've always liked some traditional ones like Trainwreck and OG and things like that. But High Times gave us a care package when we arrived, those of us who were on the program, and it had 7 or 8 kinds. And I got to tell you, they were just marvelous. I mean, I hate to acknowledge that occasionally I would take that risk, but I usually, when I'm someplace and people give me marijuana and I'm heading home, I leave it with my friends. 'Cause I don't want to go through the airport. This was too good. And it was also in a bag that was smell-proof, so I took it home. For the last couple of weeks, I've been smoking this stuff left over. So I don't know, have a favorite strain, but I can verify this. We grow, by far, the best quality marijuana in the world right here in the U.S., and we have for the last 10, 15 years. It is better than the marijuana in Holland. It's better than marijuana anyplace else. The Grow America movement can claim a lot of credit for the political progress we've made. When we used to have to depend on marijuana being imported from Canada or Thai sticks or Acapulco Gold, all kinds of crap like there were months of the year where you couldn't get any marijuana until the new crop came in. There was a drought. We used to refer to it as a drought. Usually it was June, July, and August. There is no drought now. I mean, there's marijuana available in all 50 states that's homegrown, and it's the highest quality in the world. And remember this. Without marijuana smokers wouldn't have anything to smoke, but more importantly, there wouldn't be any marijuana legalization movement. So I personally, as a consumer, feel indebted to the people that have taken major felony risks for many decades to grow and provide high-quality marijuana to those of us who smoke.
Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch.
You're quite welcome.
All right.
Did I give you a card?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Thanks.
Wow, that was, I don't think you're going to top that interview. That was probably the best one we've done today so far. But we'll probably come back with a couple more. It's DeepEllumOnAir, brought to you by theglassHouseTX.com.